Yes.
Call the board meeting of Region 6 Regional Council, Virginia Region 6, to order at 1 p.m. on Monday, April 21st. Like to welcome you all thank you for attending. Welcome some of our visitors. If you board members would take your name tags, turn them around so everybody else knows who you are. We've got several new members, so we just need to know that. First order of business after being called to order is roll call. So Sarah, would you call roll, please?
Dr. Derek Aday. John Anzavino.
Present.
Karen Bryce Rowland.
Here.
Renee Daniels. Here. Jackie Davis. Here. Jan Urquhart. Here. Vernon Green Jr.
Present.
Dr. Janet Gullickson.
Present.
Donna Hart. Lisa Hull. Lisa did say she would be joining us later. She's coming from another meeting. Pete Humes.
Present.
Dr. Shannon Kennedy. Here. Jenny Matern. Here. Jeff Sapersky.
Here.
Lindsay Watson. Dr. Kimberly Young. Here. All right, we do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum, and with our 4 members, is that including the 4 members participating remotely?
Yeah, we have an in-person quorum.
Okay, we have an in-person quorum, okay. Next order of business is to approve members participating remotely, and we have 2 additional members added to the list. We have Lisa Hull, Rob Cortell. Rob, is he online?
He is not. He emailed this morning, so he's unable to make it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So Rob's off, Karen Bryce Rowland, and Dr. Gullickson, correct?
correct.
Okay, so we'll hear a motion that we approve remote participation for our 3 board members I just noted. Thank you, Dr. Young. You'll hear a second. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any discussion about that? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. This will be just a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, everybody is now certified to participate remotely who is online. Introductions, we have a number of guests here, Carl Walker, Andy Conte, where's Bill? Hey, Billy. And I'll probably miss somebody. We've also got a couple of our new members, one online,
2 online.
2 online, okay, and let's see, who's online?
So we have Kyle Alwan and John Bateman.
Okay, we also have Joe Sislo here from Matthews County, who's going to be a new board member after we take action later in the meeting. So I want to thank you, everybody who is a visitor, wishes to learn about or participate in the Go Virginia 6 Council for attending. Do you have anybody signed up for the public?
We do not.
Shocking.
Sorry, Joe.
You know, you get used to big public meetings with a lot of controversial stuff. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which includes approval of January 27, 2024 minutes. You've had a chance to review those, I hope. They're part of your packet, which was emailed to you last week. Any additions or corrections to the minutes?
I will double check that and then we can update it.
Comments, thoughts, additions, corrections? I'll entertain a motion that we approve the January 27, 2024 minutes with the correction of adding Jackie to the list of attendees if that is borne out as part of the attendance schedule. So you'll hear a motion to that effect. Thank you. I have a second from Ms. Daniels. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's stand approved as possibly corrected. financial report, Sarah.
Yes, so we've moved the financial report, which is typically at the end of the council meeting, to the beginning, just to give everyone an idea when we're approving projects, how much we have in our per capita allocations. So we have all of the projects, those not familiar, here on the left-hand side, the ones with the pink, or if you're looking at my screen, beige coloring, are the ones that are closed out. The white are the ones that are currently open. We currently have $697,957.25 in our per capita allocations. We get just over $1 million every fiscal year. So whatever we do not spend will roll over this year to our FY26 allocations, which re-up July 1st, 2025. So the project we have on the table today is for $280,800. So it's that plus the other one we have in the pipeline for this fiscal year, which is a planning grant that we're working on. We would roll over $339,157.25. Just to give everybody an idea, in the past, when we have not used all of our per capita allocation, that has gone in the pool that has been recaptured by the state, and we've lost some of that money. So I just want to make everyone aware, this is a really good amount. I don't know that we've ever been this low with our rollover, which means we're using our money, which is good. So I just wanted to give that, everyone, if you have any questions, please let me know. In addition to that, we get $250,000 of our per capita allocation every year we can use for planning or pilot grants. So we have $78,074 that we have not used this fiscal year. That does not roll over. It just restarts at $250 starting July 1st. So that's all we have for planning grants every fiscal year.
Any questions for Sarah? Hearing none, we'll move on to presentations. Our first presentation is from Carly Walker, one of our successful grant applicants. You can hear about the success of the Workforce Now project. So, Carly.
Thank you. Did you want me to start with the video?
Yeah, if you could start, that'd be great. Thank you, Sarah.
There you go. Okay.
It tells the story.
So, no sound.
Do you have to share us?
So go ahead and start, and then I'll pull it up because I
Okay.
can run it from that computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
No worries. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Good, good. Well, the rest of it, I want some F last. So I'll just go ahead and do a quick introduction and we'll get there. My name is Carly Swain Walker. I'm the Senior Vice President of Workforce and Community Development at the Fredericksburg Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'm also the Director of Workforce Now, which is the project that we're going to be discussing today. I'm excited to walk with you through the transformation and impact of our Workforce Now initiative, thanks to the support of Go Virginia, local funders, school partnerships, and many more. And
Yeah, keep going.
can I just do the slides? Maybe we can do the video at the end.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You should be able to give it.
I do.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. So this is obviously a partnership with Go Virginia, Workforce Now, which is our nonprofit arm of the Fredericksburg Regional Chamber of Commerce and the Fredericksburg Regional Chamber. So where it all started, and here's a little bit of our history with Go Virginia and Workforce Now. So Sarah just mentioned planning grants. So we were a recipient of one of those for $10,000 in 2021. We started planning this initiative. And then we were recipient of a pilot grant for $36,000 in 2022. And the momentum was growing. So we applied for the implementation grant for $250,000, and we are now coming to the close of that. So what is Workforce Now? The mission here is stated to develop and sustain partnerships to support and encourage workforce readiness and workforce development. The nonprofit portion of it relaunched in 2022 focusing on providing work-based learning opportunities for students, meeting workforce needs of local businesses. Our partnerships as whole were 900 businesses. That's not a huge number for us because we're the Chamber of Commerce, so we're used to working with lots of businesses. But that's not the number that was in the targeted industry. We'll talk about those in a minute. And we focused on creating sustainable regional workforce pipeline. So we had a lot of victories in this journey. So we've hosted intern expos, mock interview days, Workforce Now workshops, one-on-one meetings with businesses indicating how to help them create work-based learning opportunities, internship programs, externship programs, apprenticeship, you name it. We've had strategic and funding partners, and we've had regional and state level recognition on this project. So transformation is we went from a dormant nonprofit. So Workforce Now is not new to the Chamber of Commerce, but it was a nonprofit that was in its dormancy, and we brought it back to life and revitalized it, and we created a 13-member board of directors. We built from the ground up, really with the support of Go Virginia. We created a regional movement aligning education and industry. That's the key point there. And we focused on scalable, sustainable, work-based learning. Strategic partnerships were key to the success of this. So we expanded our partnership with the University of Mary Washington. So funny, we're right here. And Dr. Kimberly Young was a key part of that. Germanna Community College, Dr. Gullickson, obviously a key part of that, and all of Planning District 16 school districts and local businesses. We established an MOU with UMW to expand regional initiatives, and we had new funding partners, just to name a few: Rappahannock Electric Cooperative, Overlea Academy, the Bay Consortium Workforce Development Board, Rappahannock Goodwill, and Rappahannock United Way. So one of our flagship successes is the Intern Expo. We just hosted our 4th annual Intern Expo on February the 6th. We had 600 plus students, 105 businesses, and 110 volunteers. It was a huge day. We had career discovery across high demand fields. We had 40 plus work-based learning matches made on location on that day. 5 breakout sessions, resume building, LinkedIn, mock interviews, and more. And we were featured in regional and state media coverage. We also had mock interview days. Our most successful one was at the close of 2024, where practical skills meet real world prep. You can see that we were at the front nets. We had 300 plus students participate. We were supported by 100 plus volunteers, and it was direct feedback in that coaching model, which was extremely successful. We had workshops throughout our time. We hosted 12 Workforce Now workshops. Businesses focused on how to host interns, connect with schools. Some of our topics, most recently we did degrees versus skills, which is a very candid conversation, which was really a great one. Another one was making students your business, helping businesses understand how to directly work with students and how to build upon your talent pipeline. And another was silos to synergy. That was a really interesting one. That was pulling from not your normal, I guess you could say, business that you think about hosting interns. Like we had a tattoo parlor at that one, and we had a brewery at that one. And they had really good conversations about, hey, we want interns too. So it was really good. Overall, at our 12 workshops, we had over 500 attendees across the sessions, and we engaged new and returning employers across industries. So these are our outcomes. I just finished our final report on Friday. So we worked within targeted industries. We worked with 615 businesses. We had 249 internship matches. That's huge. That far exceeds our expectations and what we put in our grant application. 72 businesses were served in Q1 of 2025 alone. And consistent growth in partnerships, employer buy-in, and student interest. So we have impact that we can measure. So we're not just hosting events. It's about making a difference. And I'll tell you this, like a lot of people are like, okay, yeah, I get it. You do a big event. It's the Intern Expo, right? Yeah, cool. No, this impact is happening. These students are finding pathways to internships, jobs, opportunities. They're finding ways to become employed, engaged, enrolled, and, enlisted, whatever that looks like for them. There we go. We also do a lot of surveys. So we test our data, we track our data. This is from the Intern Expo this year. 87% of students reported feeling more confident about their future after attending. 82% said they discovered a new career pathway they had not considered before. That is a huge number, and that's wonderful. 75% said they would follow the business they met at the event. The top student interests were business, healthcare, engineering, the sciences, and public service. This is employer feedback. So these are the 105 businesses that participated in the Intern Expo. 94% of the businesses rated the expo as valuable or very valuable. 73% made connections they plan to follow up on. And then the businesses valued the career-ready students. So a lot of them just said to me, I had no idea our students were this prepared. Jenny, for example, at Matron Staffing, they have a booth there every year, and they've given us great feedback that the students are really prepared. They requested more students interested in IT and skilled trades, which this is interesting because the students say they want more of that too. So we need to figure out that match. That's a piece that we need to work on. This is a quote. This is one of the best investments we made in future talent. The students asked thoughtful questions and came prepared. Another cool thing out of this is we created a student voice committee. So these are students that represent Germanna, UMW, and PD16 high schools. And they ensured programming and co-designed a lot of our programming. They are really top-notch students, guys. I mean, it's incredible the work that they've done. They started their own Instagram page. They designed thank you cards and stickers. They go out and do video documentary of all of our events. They interview people and business owners. They have really done a lot. They're incredible. We also received ongoing feedback from our events. We do post-event surveys for our participants, our businesses, and our students. And so we send them to everybody. We're used to shape the future, programming, marketing, and training support. Trends and pain points are shared with partners to improve outcomes. An example, after the 2024 mock interview day, we implemented a new volunteer training module based on the survey responses. Why it matters. This feedback helps us refine our programming as we move forward, strengthen our ROI, support equitable access, and track year-over-year growth. This is in the works. So this is what we're closing our grant out with. We are creating a custom CRM. It's in development. It's going to be an employer dashboard that tracks internships, access to VTOP, and connect with schools. It's going to be a long-term tool for expanding work-based learning infrastructure, and it responds directly to the employer needs for guidance and visibility as they're building upon these programs. Removing barriers, we try to be as accessible and inclusive as possible. We partner with public, private, and homeschool networks through this whole process. We prioritize student transportation, scheduling, and access to our events. We awarded $10,000 in student scholarships for those pursuing college and apprenticeship programs. And we're committed to reaching underserved schools and sectors. Here's just some pictures of some of our student scholarship recipients. That's always fun, giving money away, right? We also had, again, a workforce now board of directors and committee support, which allows us to have long-term stakeholders to help with our growth. We meet monthly, driving increased collaboration between educators, businesses, and community leaders. Here are some of our challenges that we experienced. So weather and school calendar conflicts, not just this year at the Intern Expo, but always. When you're talking about bringing college students that have exam schedules and class schedules, and you're talking about bringing high school students that are all on different districts and different schedules together, it's just hard. It's hard to always hit on everybody's calendar. Gaps in industry representation, particularly in IT, engineering, arts, and manufacturing, and that continues to be a focus for our future outreach. Funding flexibility is still a challenge for deeper employer support services and internship infrastructure. Early on engagement with college students was limited. We're starting to figure it out. Luckily, UMW and Germanna are wonderful partners in that work, and we're really starting to get there. We had more college students attend the Intern Expo this year than ever before. And then we're planning stronger alignment with our college career centers, the faculty champions, and alumni to boost that participation. This is just the beginning. So we don't want to say like, oh, we got this grant and we're just done. No. This helped launchpad us into the next stratosphere with what we're going to do. What we've learned is students are connecting earlier and smarter. Businesses are investing in the future talent. Schools are building deeper employer ties. Together as a community, as a region, we are shaping the next generation of the regional talent. Thank you for believing in this work and the future workforce of Virginia. And then there's a video that captures it all. I promise it's great.
Many talents, IT is not one of them. So, give me a moment, I'll pull it up.
Purpose-driven movement, one that's reshaping how our region connects education to industry. In just a short time, we've hosted intern expos with over 100 students and 100 plus businesses, opening doors to real-world career exploration. Our mock interview day brought together 300 students and more than 100 community volunteers, creating powerful learning moments and confidence-building experiences. Through our Workforce Now workshops, we're helping build businesses lay the foundation to host interns, exchange with schools, and invest in the next generation of talent. We facilitated internships and work-based learning connections with over 400 businesses and matched more than 200 students into meaningful roles that are building skills, networks, and futures. To ensure our impact is real and measurable, we've tracked data every step of the way through surveys, interviews, and ongoing business engagement. It's documented, it's strategic, and it's working. We've rebuilt a vibrant board of directors, launched committees and subcommittees, and most importantly, created a student voice committee to make sure our students' perspectives are front and center in all we do. We're also developing a custom CRM platform to equip businesses with the tools they need to create sustainable internship programs, access to VTOP, track matches, and stay plugged into the regional talent pipeline. And let's not forget, we've awarded $10,000 in scholarships to students heading to college and apprenticeships, reinforcing our belief that all career paths are worth celebrating. This isn't just programming, this is a movement. Workforce Now is a regional success story, a forward-thinking investment in our students, our businesses, and our collective future. And the best part, we're just getting started.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
You mentioned that the program is now just getting started.
Yeah.
Who's picking up the funding for that?
So obviously the Chamber of Commerce supports us. All of our events that we've hosted thus far are supported by businesses through sponsorship. We're going to be expanding upon that. We're also expanding upon some of our strategic partnerships. For example, we're thinking about hosting our next Intern Expo on campus here at UMW. So we're building upon that strategy for sure.
Additional questions from the board?
Carly, can you tell them about the extern that I met that made us want to reach out to Spotsylvania schools about getting an extern? She was a grad from Riverbend, maybe. She's 16. And just kind of like, she put together all these PowerPoints for you guys. And isn't she volunteering on her own time now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Avery, she's actually in my office this week again.
Okay.
Gala week.
Yeah.
So we always highlighted when we had externs or interns in the room at any other chamber event. And we highlighted that one of our externs at one point did the presentation. Like we said, shout out to Avery, she did the presentation today. And Jenny heard it and she was like, oh, I'm very interested in that. Like if a 16-year-old can do this, let's go, you know? And it started the process of Jenny reaching out and then bringing in interns or externs into her business as well. We have a lot of success stories. Another success story is City Vino is at, an intern expo about 2 years ago. She met a young lady that wanted to be a chef, but she specializes in charcuterie boards. And, City Vino knew at the time that they were moving and they were adding that component to their storefront. So they met, they interacted. She said, I'm gonna be in touch with you really soon. Long story short, she ended up being her first chef at City Vino when they opened their new location. And there's so many success stories like that that have really just been amazing to celebrate.
Any questions, comments? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Carly, I put a note in the chat. If you take a quick look at that, just for future references, I'll send it to you in an email too.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, moving on, we have a presentation from Andy Conte, DEP, Regional Talent Solutions and Business Outreach. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
I know, thanks for having me.
Thank you. You're welcome. For those that don't know, Annie was our program administrator at DHCD for Go Virginia before she went to DEP, so she's very familiar.
Yes, I'm very familiar with Go Virginia, too familiar. Yes, and I miss working with everyone, but luckily I'm still working with you guys in a different capacity. So Sarah and I have been kind of collaborating on talking to some employers this spring, and so she invited me to come present on the team I'm on at DEP and just a little bit about what we do. It's a brief overview. So I think a lot of, you're probably familiar with DEP from a business attraction standpoint. I think that's what most people think of. And that is a lot of what DEP does, is bringing in companies and, providing a value prop for locating in Virginia. But we do have this regional talent solutions and business outreach team, and our focus is supporting existing companies in Virginia. So we're more on the retention and expansion side of things. My only clients and companies I work with are existing Virginia employers. And so our RITSPO team, for short, because it's a really long name, kind of has 4 overall strategies we're trying to achieve. So we're doing existing business outreach, and we're really trying to build and maintain relationships with Virginia employers, so that if they are ever potentially expanding, if they're considering relocating, we have an ongoing relationship and they know we can reach out to our contact at DEP and hopefully keep them here. We also manage one of the incentives that BDP offers, which is the Virginia Jobs Investment Program. So that incentive is pretty popular with a lot of manufacturers. And happy to, I won't get into incentives, but that's a separate conversation if anyone's interested. Happy to provide more information on that. And we also do a lot of talent support. So whether for existing companies in Virginia or if there's a prospect visit, our team is regionally based and we're really working within the workforce network. And what I'm really going to focus on is all of the partner referrals that we end up making when we do that to our workforce partners across the region. And all of this is within the context that we work closely with our partners, especially our local and regional economic developers. So I'm not just going out and cold calling companies in localities. I'm working closely with the local economic developer, any local or regional staff that are looped into the meetings. So that is to say that I'm not just out there meeting with companies, I'm looping in. So Joe and I actually did a couple of visits, or we visited a company in Matthews earlier this spring. So that's an important note there. And this is just a little kind of list of what we're trying to get out of the outreach efforts. So, there's a benefit for us to learn about issues that companies are having. I think that workforce comes up in almost every conversation. So it wasn't always a part of the business outreach side of things, but now it has become one. So we're really coming out of there making workforce related referrals kind of after every single meeting, I would say. Yeah, and just kind of developing relationships with the companies. So this is a couple data points from last fiscal year, and I will say that we will be updating this in June of this year, so I'm always happy to kind of provide some updated data, but our team met with over 500 companies in 100 localities. And the companies we're trying to meet with are, as you all are familiar, they're all traded sector companies, so we're gonna have a lot of the same overlap as industries that Virginia is trying to impact. We have a methodology, we come up with a list, and we also take into account any locality input. So research might poll, you know, these are the 3 largest employers, but the localities know who will actually want to meet with us, who might not want to meet with us, who's probably doing good, who might need a little help. So we do inform our list based on locality input. It's just a little map of some of the companies we ended up meeting with. So in Go Virginia Region 6, I met with Unidyne. I know you guys have a relationship with them. West Rock, Carry On Trailer, obviously. And you can see kind of other across localities. And I've got a map of our territories at the end. And so in terms of working with Go Virginia, why this is relevant to you all, we track kind of consulting services that we provide to companies. And so you'll see that our referrals are by far the largest consulting service we provide. So we're also able to provide kind of HR consulting research. We do wage analysis for companies. We can provide information on incentives and partner referrals. So this year or last year, we unfortunately didn't break down some of our other categories, but this year I will say Go Virginia is in its M category, so we'll be able to provide a little more detail on that. But you can see that we basically meet with the company and say, oh, you're never met with Jenna, you're a manufacturer, let's connect with them. Virginia Career Works, we do a lot of referrals to Jacob at Fate Consortium, work together with him. In our Lidos, and so Go Virginia, I would say, in a good way, I have an understanding of the program. So when an employer is able to share a challenge that could be a Go Virginia project, that's when I would reach out to Sarah and introduce her to the company and make sure you guys take it from there. Yeah, and that's all I prepared. This is kind of a breakdown of our map and our other managers that cover different areas. It's by Go Virginia region, but for the most part, but we unfortunately don't use the same region names, which is confusing. Yeah, and just want to let you all know that that part of VDP is there, and whether you know it or not, we're making referrals to, you know, Rappahannock Community College, Shermanna, Mary Washington, Go Virginia. So happy to take any questions you have, or just, I'll be at the summit tomorrow too, so hopefully we'll connect with some of you all there.
Questions from board members?
Annie, I connected you with a manufacturer and he called me and he said it went really well, and sounds like there's some funding possibly for the future needs for them.
Yeah,
so I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's kind of, it's hard because sometimes you get in the door and then for incentives purposes, we can't incentivize something that's already started the process. And so Jenny luckily connected us with the company that it's going to potentially be making a pretty large investment. And so hopefully what that means for everyone is that there would then be an announcement that comes out about jobs and hiring. And that's kind of a good boost for workforce partners to kind of have events for hiring and plug in with the company. So you think of incentives as something that's just good for the company, but I think that if it ends up working out, it's something that really benefits the whole region. So thank you.
Yeah,
for that.
thank you.
Great timing.
If I can, just to let you know, Annie has also, thank you, Annie, agreed to serve on PD 16's first regional comprehensive economic development strategy committee. She'll be joining some of the others like Jamie and Dr. Gullickson and others that's serving on that committee, which we're very excited about kicking off for the first time for our region.
Additional thoughts from the board? Additional questions from the board? We're all quiet. Annie, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you, and happy to, I can even just send the slides when we pull them together at the end of the fiscal year, kind of goes over some of the challenges we've seen, like region-wide, so happy to send that. Cool, thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on, your executive committee committee met a little bit earlier today. And we had a number of items to discuss. We do have a couple of action items here for appointments and reappointments, but we talked a little bit about the budget. Talked a little bit about the recruitment process for needs replacement. And we talked about membership in general. We are on the edge of having on the lower edge of where we should be for membership. And we talked about strategies to recruit new members. And one of the things that we discussed was kind of having a cheat sheet for all of us to kind of explain what Region 6 Go Virginia is. State's supposed to be doing that according to Sarah. Billy,
That
you
is the
understand
support
that
board,
came
having
out
them
of
sort of like standardized. Training, yeah.
Billy, do you have a timeline?
We just had the meeting last week, so we're trying to get through, this round of applications and,
Okay.
we'll be sure to, I'll bring it up to the next staff meeting, kind of figure out if we can roll out some.
As business folks and lay people, it would be tremendously helpful, I think, for our members to have that type of cheat sheet, if you will. To be able to discuss with potential members, what Go Virginia is, what the successes have been, really what the obligations are for Go Virginia. So whenever y'all can get that together would be helpful, but in the meantime, we need private sector representation, particularly needed, down North Peninsula, down our area. So we need to be working on that. So if you have a thought concerning potentially good board member who would have an interest in Go Virginia, contact Sarah. She'll help you with that. Because we need to get up, we have a maximum number of board members of 25, and we're at 17.
Yes, that's.
So we're 8 short. And, we would like, and today we were a little bit, even though we knew we would have a quorum, we were getting a little bit nervous near the time of the meeting. So, because everybody has a busy schedule, we recognize that. You're giving of your time. This is volunteer time, pure volunteer time. But it's important that we have enough members that we have some fallback. We also have some diversity as part of the board as well. So we need to work on that. That's something that will be more information coming in the near future. Sarah's going to be keeping us up to date on. Before we have our action item, you all may be curious about what's happening with the replacement or its replacement. The executive committee had a briefing today. Jeff and I have been involved with that, working with Chip and with Kate. And so I've asked Chip, he volunteered to provide a brief update. This will be kind of a very generalized report where we are in the process, because we have good candidates, but we do have some internal candidates that would be unfair to go into much detail. So Chip, why don't you give us a quick briefing?
Be glad to, Mr. Chair. Of course, with Ian leaving, we began advertising predominantly throughout Virginia. We did spend a lot on the national type of advertisement, because finding somebody familiar with Go Virginia, which is unique to the Commonwealth, is really what we're looking for. But we've been advertising for just over a month. On the 14th, we began reviewing applications, and out of 12 applications that have been submitted by the 14th, we've broken it down to actually 6 that we'll be holding telephone interviews with this coming Thursday. The GWRC staff is overseeing those telephone interviews. We'll break those 6 down to a smaller number, probably 3-ish, but according to how those telephone interviews go, it could be 4, it could be 2, it could be 1. I mean, we'll see how it goes. We'll then share that information with the chair and vice chair and come to an agreement on whatever the number is for that short list, to then invite those in for in-person interviews. With that, we'll take a look at it and come to an agreement between both the Go Virginia Council and the GWRC staff on who to make an offer to. Given the timing to schedule things for in-person interviews, giving a notice, coming to an agreement, and possibly having somebody that would require a 30-day period for them to leave their current position, if in fact that's the direction we go, we're looking probably close to a July 1st begin date. Could be quicker, but probably on the outside would be July 1st, the beginning of the fiscal year. We've been very, very pleased with the response so far, definitely with the quality of the responses. And just, you know, it's one of those things too, we talked with the executive committee about earlier. This selection process is very much twofold. We definitely want to get the best person that we can for the Go Virginia Council, because that's by far the predominant amount of work. But they also do economic development work for the GWRC, so we have to make sure that person fits that mold. The other thing very, very important to me as a director is that they fit the mold of the GWRC. We take a position that the most qualified person on paper has to fit the culture as well. So we'll be putting a lot of importance on that. But so far, the working relationship that we've had with the chair and vice chair has been excellent. I think that'll continue. Be glad to answer questions as long as it's not very detailed.
So any questions, any thoughts? Chip, thank you very much. All right, we move on to our action item. We'll entertain one motion to approve the entire slate. First portion of the slate is new membership. Joe Sislo is with us today, Chairman of the Matthews County Economic Development Authority, retired corporate executive, your federal contractor, very extensive background and resume. And Ian and I have met with Joe about a cooperative partnership between Matthews and Middlesex a couple months ago. And I found Joe to be one of the most energetic individuals I've seen down that part of the state for a long time. So he works hard. We also have Kyle Allwine, who works with Northern Neck Cooperative. He works with economic development. And then we have John Bateman, who is Lancaster County Economic Development Director and Assistant to the County Administrator. You have their application materials in your packet. Both Kyle and John, I think, are online and have joined the meeting as well. So those are our three new members. We also have need to appoint a person to the executive committee. And when we had our last meeting with Sarah, we were talking about who's available, who fit the bill. Immediately, it came to Jeff's in my mind, Jenny Matter. And this is your second meeting.
Second meeting.
You made a
Big impression, right?
But I think many of you know Jenny, the quality type of professional that she is. So we're, the executive committee recommended nominating her to the executive committee earlier today. And then finally, and Jeff reluctantly agreed to re-up as a board member for another 4-year term, as well as Renee agreed to do the same. So if we could have a motion from the board to accept the slate presented by the executive committee from today's earlier meeting for appointments, reappointments, and nominations to the executive committee, we would appreciate that. So moved. Thank you, Vern. Appreciate it. Where's that second, Jan? Okay, Jan, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll entertain by voice vote. All those in favor of adopting the slate as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, well, welcome new members. Congratulations, Jenny. Welcome. We're glad to have all of you on board. yes, for new members. Thank you. There will be an orientation session. That is yet to be structured. Sarah will be in touch with you. Kate will be in touch with you. So it will help you better understand Go Virginia Region 6, some of our past successes, your obligation as a board member under the bylaws, how often you meet, and all of the things that you may not know, you may have questions about. So that will take place in the very near future. So be on the lookout for contact with Sarah and Kate. Okay, let's move on to new business. The Go Virginia Region 6 fiscal year 26 capacity building budget. You didn't make that an acronym.
I know, right?
And after Kate's made her presentation, we will need to take a vote. So,
Just for quick background, every year, Go Virginia allocates $250,000 to each region through their capacity building funding. That's what pays for GWRC staffing, meeting expenses, IT expenses, all of that kind of stuff. So today I'm kind of presenting two pieces. The first is an amendment to the current fiscal year budget, based on some savings with Ian's vacancy, and some savings in some other areas, as well as how much money we project to roll forward from this year's 250 paired with next year's 250 and what our budget would look like as a whole for next year. So the first piece is the budget amendment, and this memo kind of describes where those savings are coming from. So a large savings in salary, fringe, and indirect related to the vacancy that I mentioned. Savings in some meetings cost, and then also savings in the actual contract amount for the growth and diversification plan development from what was originally put there as a placeholder. We did have a couple small increases in marketing due to advertising the position and in equipment costs. So overall, we are moving $52,000 into the contingency, which will carry over into next year's budget. And then of the amount that is being, that is for the growth and diversification plan, part of it will be spent this fiscal year and part of it will roll into next fiscal year. So if you can go to the next page. This is just a summary of what your current budget is as was amended by the executive committee in December, what we're proposing and that difference. And then on the side is how that splits down between the 2024 capacity building funding and the 2025 capacity building funding. So that's the budget amendment part. Does anybody have any questions on that before I move into the new budget? Okay. So moving, yes.
One thing, because it's the same with the GWRC budget. We tend not to want to put a lot into contingency. We should know what we're spending money for. But one of the things here that we do with Go Virginia is we use that as a multi-year savings account for when we have to hire a consultant for the GMD plan. We don't want to have to take the full consultant cost out of one fiscal year. So we put it into contingency so that we can use it for something else. But the real goal is to roll that over and so that we have capital available when we do need to hire a consultant. I don't know about you all, but contingency line items can be a red flag on occasion.
Yeah, it's really more of a carryover rather than a contingency, but yes, that's where we're parking that money.
well, and I think about recently, we went through the process of hiring a consultant. We didn't have enough money in contingency, hire the consultant that we really selected as our first choice.
Right.
So building that reserve, I call it the reserve.
Yes.
Building that reserve is often very important, and depending upon what Sarah and our future folks identify as needs within the consulting world, we may need that money. So it's wise to do it. It's wise to carry that over.
Absolutely. The other piece here is that you all adopted, I think a year or so ago, the administrative fee for projects.
Yeah.
So we can charge up to an 8% administrative fee for project applications, which directly funds our staff time to administer those projects, traditionally, we had paid for that time through our capacity building fund. So being able to pick up some of those costs under the admin fee will help us to build that contingency or carryover fund back up for those future concerns.
And it's not creative budgeting, it's wise use of resources.
Agreed, yes. Any other questions on the amendment? Okay, so then going into the capacity building budget, so what we need to turn into DHCD is how we're gonna use the 250,000 that they're giving us starting July 1. But we really wanted to pair that with the money that's carrying over from last year to give you a full picture of what GWRC's budget looks like for next year. So this is just the narrative that kind of describes how those funds will be used. So the vast majority goes towards the salary, fringe, and indirect costs for the GWRC staffing. That includes funding for 0.9 FTE for the program director and 0.7 FTE for the program coordinator. And then we've got money budgeted for meetings and workshops. That can be anything from having lunch for the different meetings and subcommittees that we have to attending trainings and conferences and events and things like that. Travel is for, mileage to various meetings as well as travel for any conferences and events. A small budget for marketing and outreach. Supplies and equipment is primarily for the Good Grants software that we're using for folks to submit their project applications through that. And the most recent project application that we're going to be reviewing today went through that process. And then we will have some funding for the growth and diversification plan that will carry into next year as well. On the next page, this just, I think that's the wrong sheet. That's okay. Let's see. If you go to the next one, yeah, this is just a breakdown of that funding, just for the 250. And then there is another sheet that shows how that funding splits between the 2 years. I think that made it into the executive committee packet, but not this one. But would be happy to answer any questions about next year's.
Questions concerning fiscal year 26 budget, and how the funds are being allocated? None? Trust the staff completely. Okay, let's entertain two separate motions for this. The first motion we would like to entertain is amending the current fiscal year 25 budget as recommended by staff and the executive committee. I'll make that motion. Have a motion and second. Mr. First and from Dr. Kennedy. Any discussion? Motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the motion passes. Second will be to adopt the recommended fiscal year 2026 budget proposal as recommended by staff and the executive committee. Jackie, have a motion from Jackie Davis, and do I hear a second? From Davis is seconded the motion. Any discussion, any questions? This is our budget going forward after July 1. Everybody's comfortable with what's been presented? Okay, hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, we'll take care of our financial things for today. Okay, moving on, the whole business. We are way ahead of schedule. That's good. That's good for you folks who have real lives and real jobs. I want this old retired. Sarah's going to discuss with us, and Sarah and I had this discussion with Jeff concerning the project review committee. We've sought volunteers for this. I think at least on one occasion, correct, Sarah? Yeah. Maybe more than that. We've had no takers. In the past, past, what we used to do is we had somebody volunteer every time a project was submitted. And we had some subcommittees that were appointed to the committees where we felt comfortable, but we've talked about having a broader committee. And we need to have some volunteers, so, Sarah,
Yeah, so the idea behind the volunteers needed for our project review committee, we would need to amend the bylaws, which we would try to do in July. This committee would be looking at all the applications that come in, whether planning or implementation. I believe Renee, you did volunteer. We have one volunteer. We're looking for 4 to 5 people, and you would be reviewing the application in our Good Grant platform, which will have an orientation on how to go through. And basically, these would be all virtual meetings, so we would not be taking a vote. We don't have to have an in-person forum for these meetings. Anytime we got an application in, we would give it to you in plenty of time to read through the grant. The platform will allow you to make suggestions, give feedback, and then ultimately the group will be deciding on making a recommendation to the council on approval or things that need to be changed. I know it can be a large time commitment, and it had come up as a question of if a regional council member could appoint a proxy to be on the application review committee for them. And I think originally the answer was no, but I do believe now that's something I wanted to open up to the council for discussion. If that's something everybody would be comfortable with, I think we would get maybe a little bit more subject matter expert volunteers if we did do that. So this is really a discussion item for no decision today. We'll be voting on it in July. But in the meantime, if you or you feel comfortable with appointing a proxy to volunteer for this committee, that's something we would be looking for between now and the July meeting. Yes, and Dr. Gullickson, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. So could we do a proxy and I think by that I mean, could we invite an SME that we feel would be good to advise us on this particular topic rather than give that kind of review process solely to a proxy? That would just be my comment.
Yeah, I know the state board does this, so how implementation and statewide competitive application work is that when it goes to the state board, when we submit it to DHCD, they set up their own work group, basically, and they have 2 members of the state board and then a subject matter expert, depending on the investment area, so workforce development, entrepreneur activities, or site development subject matter expert that they give their recommendations for the application as well. So I will leave that up to the council and what you would prefer to do for this. If that's something you feel open, that if there's somebody on the application review committee wants to bring in a subject matter expert, if that's something the council would be amenable to. Yeah.
And we usually, we try to do 2 subject matter experts and 2 board members. Depending on scheduling conflicts, sometimes we may only get 1 board member, or sometimes we get 2 board members and 1 SME, but generally we try to have 4 folks.
board members, any thoughts that you might have?
I've served on the scoring of applications, we all most of us have. And I think that's a great idea because there have been times where I may not have subject matter experience, I just have real world business experience. But it would be really nice to have somebody who either had done a similar kind of project or been involved in something related to it. I think that's a nice balance.
I'll say this, we've had a real hard time in the past getting volunteers for the work group reviews, and we do have a lot, built in to our applications right now. And I think this way we would have volunteers that are familiar with the application process. So council members that are, involved, they understand what the applications look like, what needs to be done in the application, what's going to work for the state board. And so I think that that's important to have those same people. I know it can be a time commitment, but I feel like that way you are more familiar with these people. It's something they do regularly.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so I asked this question, I think, before. Part of the challenge that in the past that I had seen was that we know we can't plan when it's submitted and when we need to read it. But I'm wondering if there's a way to even kind of set the review, kind of the deadline, so that we can have it on our calendar, because that was the challenge I was having before. I'm like, oh, I'd love to read that grant,
Right.
but I don't have time between here and here, right? Like, so when we're right up on the date, even though 5 days may feel like a lot of time, it's not
Yeah.
when it may be like just 3 days before, right? Like.
Exactly. And I think this will solve that problem.
Okay,
And I think.
and that made me hesitant to
Right.
sign up because.
And I think in the past, we've had, in July, we started having very strict deadlines for applications. I think in the past, there was some gray area for when people could submit their applications. And I think we started putting in a bit more of a strict structure to submitting an application, but having this committee, we have the timeline of when the grants are due. We have the application timeline. That way we can set these committee meetings. If we don't have an application, cancel it. The fact that we wouldn't necessarily need a quorum because we're not taking a vote. And you wouldn't even have, you would be going in the good grants on your own time, making notes, giving feedback. It does give a little bit more structure and flexibility at the same time that I think would work better. Bernie,
Yes.
exactly, okay.
And you sort of roughly, just for all the board members and the new board members that are coming on, how much time is involved in it? And every application is different.
Yeah, so
How much time is involved?
for an implementation application, we're looking at like a 3-month process that by the time that you all see it at the council meeting, we've been working with them sometimes longer. Planning grants is a little bit shorter. There's only 7 questions to a planning grant. You're not required to submit an ROI template. There's 8 rounds in the year for planning grants. The implementation, there's 15, 16 questions, I think now.
14.
14. There's an ROI template you have to work out. It's a lot more intensive. And so there's a lot that applicants put into these applications by the time they get to regional council. And I think having this feedback process will also help make the application stronger. And we've started sending them as soon as I get an inquiry for a project, before I even get a pre-application, I'm sending it to Philly. So that DHC can be involved throughout the process.
Yeah, because I'm in the same boat. Sometimes like 5 days seems like a lot, and I'm notorious. I'm probably drive her crazy. Overcommit, underdeliver. I'm like, yeah, I'll have it by Tuesday, then get it to her till Thursday. So the application will be in front of us. But yeah, no, the more lead time.
When we discussed this earlier today, the executive, team, as far as reviewing applications and working with the software, training will be provided. And so you won't go into this cold, because it's a good software package, what I've seen of it, but nobody wants to step into using the software package without knowing how to use it, right? So there will be some training provided for that. So what we're looking for is not a vote today, but a consensus on the part of the board concerning concerning the project committee and having proxies. If you think it's a good idea, if you don't think it's a good idea. Well, I think what I'm hearing, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it sounds like it's okay. Anybody have any objections to that? Yes.
What could go wrong?
Who knows?
Maybe find out.
I mean, I guess, so I am wondering. But how do we manage for or control for interest? Right? Meaning I have an interest in not what you're doing, right? Like this not happening. But I am random SME in the community and I get invited because I'm a SME, but is that helpful or is that hurtful? And how do we control for it?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Kind of a little bit along the same line. How many people would serve on this committee?
I would looking for no more than 4 or 5. I don't think it needs to be a large, you know what I mean? I think 4 or 5 people who are committed and interested and want to review the applications would be.
So that would be 4 or 5 board members or their proxies.
That's the original thought that I was bringing to you. So that's what I wanted to get the regional council's opinion on.
But if you're finding a hard time getting all of us to volunteer,
you're going to put a load on a subset of us.
Yeah.
And that's a concern.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think in the past, it wasn't scheduled, and so,
This would be a schedule.
and this is going to be, so the big thing that's changing for those of us who are like, you know, those requests whizzing in and out, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, I don't have time. That is a big difference.
Right, yes, these would be on the calendar at the beginning, so in July, we get the next year's application deadlines from, or in October, sorry, from the HCD. I set our calendar for calendar year 26, and at that time, those meetings will be set at the beginning of the year, yes.
I think when you, back to your question about what could go wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's wrong, but I think one of the only possible drawbacks is you've got the same people doing it all the time. And same set of, experiences and abilities and everything else. Did you consider possibly having X number of people being the main committee? And then maybe kind of when you have a grant, maybe recruit one more person from the board so you get a bit of randomness? Or do you think we'd be right back where we have been?
But having those same people could.
Exactly.
Cases that tend to dictate something else is being done and take that up.
Well, and a certain level of excellence.
And Jan, I think we tried that concept that you just outlined. Did we not have that a couple of years ago?
I think before, there was almost like a project steering committee, or that was trying to direct projects. I think if there's concern about the same people, we could always build into the bylaws that every calendar year we take a new set of volunteers. If that's something that the council want to keep on sort of rotating, could be an option.
So when, I was initially looking at doing this, that was expressed, that it was not gonna be a permanent position. It would be something that I would do for this year, or maybe 2 years, and then I would switch off and somebody else on the board would do it. My thought is that this is one of the reasons we're on the board, is to review these applications. So I feel like it's really important for us as council members to do that work and not proxy. But that's, that's why.
When you're doing it, it feels like that's why you're on the board.
Yes. So I feel strongly that it really should be a council person.
We might offer the proxy option only for those very specialized applications where we don't have expertise on the project review committee. And that would be, I think, at the option of the project review committee, trying to seek some outside support to get the real detail that they need to really thoroughly review the application. Would that work for you?
I think that makes sense. Because we're not all experts. Having that expertise would be helpful.
Well, if we have a project review committee, okay, you get an industrial site development proposal. That how many of you all have ever worked on reviewing industrial site proposal? I have, okay, but that's about it.
Maybe one.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Vernon has his area of expertise. Renee, you have your area of expertise. Jan, you have your area of expertise. And, if we put a committee together, it's going to be a solid committee, but not all the folks who are on there, it's a 4-member committee, they have to be able to cover all of our areas. So, maybe that's an option to consider the bylaw adjustment.
And just 2 points on it. I think we were talking earlier in the executive committee about recruiting new council members that are in our targeted industry clusters. And so I think being very intentional about new regional council members in those clusters coming on will help sort of cover, because the projects are going to have to be dealing with one of those industries. And I believe we got the idea from Region 4, because they have a project review committee that doesn't have to have a forum thing online, and it seems to work really well for them. So there is a model that's working doing this.
Just on my thoughts, I'm a little reluctant on the proxy too. We've had all the members here, and then to go one more sublimation down to their proxy, I do think it's our job. I think if we're trying to solve for participation and engagement, maybe the next step is see if scheduling these things within a window solves that problem. And then we maybe not go to the next step of the proxy, but if we're still having a problem, then maybe, reconsider, would be my thoughts.
So you're saying for like the next round of applications, go ahead now, pick that week and say, hey, who's available for this work group if we have an application?
I mean, your windows through the year,
Yes.
just go ahead and
Yeah.
put them out there.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
That's kind of what we do at the state level, so there's not like 5 or 6 people that are on standby every quarter. It's kind of, we reach in, and we honestly, at the end of the day, don't know our volume. Of course, we get everybody's application. So, this quarter is gonna be a real busy quarter, but, sometimes, we may not have as many work groups. We schedule our application work groups by the investment areas of workforce development, site development, so forth and so on. And we reach out to individual council members, so that it's not, now, of course, we have an issue where we don't reach out to, the politics, the legislators, because we just don't want to get politics so much into the review process as much as we can. But for all the private sector folks, we will just reach out and be like, who's available? And sometimes, to your point, Mr. Chair, if somebody has kind of a background in like sites or development, maybe we'll get that person for a sites project, but if it's workforce, maybe we reach out to somebody else. But that way, it's not like and these are public meetings for us because there are no more than 2.
Yeah, we would have to advertise the work group. Again, it wouldn't need a quorum. We're not taking a vote, but it would still be a public meeting that we would advertise if we did this. The way it's structured right now is when new board members come on, and I think last year we had you all re-up a survey of what investment area you wanted, whether it was workforce development, entrepreneurialism, or your work group reviews. So I think what we can do, if everyone's with a consensus, is I can go ahead and schedule out the work groups as it is now, but put them on the calendar. And if, we don't have the applications, we can cancel them and then come back in July and decide if that works, if we want to continue with that, or if we want to form this committee.
As a new board member, having not seen my first one yet, I think we talked about this in orientation, and maybe when we do the software sort of tutorial, give us maybe some perspective on what we're looking for in these grants. I mean, I can evaluate any project like a banker. That's probably not the way you want to do it here. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
For any council member that's interested, we've been holding application information sessions every 3 months. We split them out through the subregions. I would encourage y'all to attend, if you can, because even though they're geared towards potential applicants, it goes in a different level that maybe I think, and I'm happy to just hold one if we want to and go through it with the council. But if you're able to attend one in person, then you're also meeting potential applicants, maybe making connections for them that we may not have thought of. And so, the next one's in King and Queen County on May 7th. So if anyone's interested, and then the one after that will be in PD 16, and then we'll go to the Northern Neck.
So,
I mean, we should be there when you have them in our areas just for support for no other reason, I'd say.
Yeah, and
That'd be helpful to me.
they're usually we send them in our newsletter mail out, but I can start specifically sending them in an email to you all. Yeah, absolutely.
all right, so everybody's comfortable with the approach that Sarah's outlined. Okay, so we're not going to consider a bylaw in July. We're going to take a stab at approaching this from a different angle without bylaw adjustment. All right, everybody's on notice though that we do need folks to review applications. Get notice that an application is up for review. We need to step up.
Schedule, when would the year-long schedule be?
The next schedule, the state board approves in October for calendar year. Their applications go on a calendar year, and then our fiscal year is July. But I can go ahead and start scheduling out. I'll start with the next round of planning grants, which starts this week. Yeah. They start. The actual review won't be for like another month or so. So yeah.
Sarah, you comfortable with that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, all right, let's move on. Update on our 2025 growth and diversification plan, Sarah.
So, we undertook before Ian left, issued out an RFP for a consultant to come in. This is our large growth and diversification plan update. So we have to update it every 2 years. Between that is a small update. So in 2023, we did a very minor update. We did it in-house and staff. This one's the big overhaul review. So we did bring on a consultant. We had, the executive committee, review the top three that we had scored. So myself scored them, Ian, I believe, Chip scored, and then the executive committee. And so of the top scores, executive committee reviewed, our top choice was over the amount that we had in contingency to pay. Even when they came down, it was still over the amount. But I'm really happy to say that we ended up going with TPM. So we have started that process of going through their, looking through their data search right now, going through our past D&D plans, going through D&D plans from other regions, going through all the data that we were allowed to provide from DHCD. And so we will be soon scheduling, I'll go through, we have a timeline for you guys, scheduling stakeholder meetings. I have invited them to come to our July meeting so that we can have them talk to the council, get your view on it for their stakeholder engagement. And then they'll be holding meetings. We're scheduling those right now with each within the industry clusters. These will be virtual because we know it's hard in the past from our other meetings to get business people in the room together. So we are going to do these virtually. They'll also be attending, if possible, Jackie's CARES projects, also doing industry roundtables. So to try not to duplicate efforts, they'll be attending those, listening. It's a lot of the same information. So the timeline on this, they will have a draft for staff and for DHCD by September 1st. We'll give it to the executive committee to give their feedback as well. And then the final revisions back to us by October 15th so that the regional council can vote on it on October 27th, because we do have a drop deadline of October 31st to submit it to DHCD. So, but they will be present at our July, which is an all virtual meeting, to ask you guys questions, give us an update, and we can go from there.
Things that we might be thinking about, we talked at the executive committee level today about is either narrowing or adjusting our industry clusters a little bit. For example, we haven't really touched much. We had an application last year for artificial intelligence, which kind of bounced back by the state because the State Department of Education, we understood, was going to take that on. But that is something which is, as you all know, it's a growing field, something that is probably pretty hot up here in the I-95 corridor area, not so much down the Middle Peninsula, but up here. You know, it's really important to stay on top of and expand our knowledge and experience with it. We also talked about.
I don't say that that is extremely expensive and when we talk about artificial intelligence, there's going to require a large amount of collaboration in order to get the benefits of it.
And it's such a quickly evolving field. It's like, today is not like tomorrow or yesterday.
And the bigger challenge that we're finding in AI is that we're running forward with AI before we put this rails and safeguards on it. And so there's controls that need to be developed more extensively before they release this. I went to an AI conference last week, and what the way it was described is you let the demon out of the box and it's eating everything before you have learned what its diet is or how to control it. It was
Good thoughts.
On that vein, the state did hold our last, they held a panel on AI that I sent everyone, and at least Jenny and Jeff and Vernon. I don't know if somebody else was on there from the council attended it, and so I thought it was really insightful as well.
And, we funded an AI statewide landscape assessment. Well, I should say Region 3 and Region 2 co-funded it. But the footprint's going to be for all 9 Go Virginia regions, and it's being part of a Virginia Chambers Blueprint 2035. So it's going to be done in parallel to that, where they're trying to get a better understanding of AI and workforce readiness. So they're going to be reaching out to all regional councils. So just
Yeah. I had it as an information.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I was gonna bring it up. So yeah, they're reaching out to all our councils. They want one staff member from each support org and one council member. Vernon has volunteered his time to be on that advisory committee for that project. So I think that I've emailed who our people are and haven't heard back yet, but I think it's gonna be kicking off. And I'll get to it later, but in tandem with that, there will be the Virginia Chambers holding meetings around each Go Virginia region. And so I have it here when ours is, and I'll be sending it out to everyone to register for that. It'll be here.
Circling back to the growth of the diversification plan,
Yes.
which is where we started the discussion. Narrowing our industry clusters. We had a little bit of a discussion about this at the executive committee meeting today. You know, for example, we have had forestry as an industry cluster for, I guess, forever. We never funded or had a forestry application, and talking to folks involved in the forestry industry with very little interest in the types of things that we're doing till there is. But there's just not a lot of forward thinking. So that might be something that, as we develop this growth and diversification plan in our target areas, we think about maybe moving on from aquaculture. We've had some success. Have we ever had any success in agriculture?
It's new. We just added.
That's right, we did. So review the current plan. Think about what we can improve upon the current plan, so that we sit down and talk to our consultants about this, and we begin this, well, we've begun the process, but when we get involved in the process as a board, we can speak to them, you know, from a standpoint of, you know, some really good background experience.
If I could add one more to think about, it would be energy. And now that we have Kyle, will be an expert in that, but all of the businesses that are coming into the region will require energy at some level, but some of them will require huge amounts of energy, including small nuclear reactors and things I know nothing about. So, and that is a traded sector in some ways for us. So just something to think about going forward is, where does power belong in all of this? So.
That's what I thought. Power is going to put a huge strain on our.
If you're familiar with, there's a whole concept of microgrids evolving throughout the country. And that involves a whole lot of different types of sources of energy, power, and different things. So, you know, that's something that there may be needed training for. That the energy thing is a big deal. You're not, Virginia is gonna, well, we're a net import of electricity now. It's just getting bigger and bigger. We're not keeping up with our demand. So that's a good thought. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, one thing maybe of note, as we've discussed, we've got two plans going at the same time. The growth and diversification plan for Go Virginia throughout all of Go Virginia 6, and then the PD 16 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. Sarah has been coordinating between the two consulting firms doing this so that the same data is being shared and not duplicated. So we're trying to get the biggest bang for the buck with the consultants for data, and also making sure we don't end up with two plans using two different sources of data with conflicting data during different time periods. So we're really pleased to have both of our consulting groups working together on these two plans.
And I guess TPMA will be looking at the SEDS plan for the Middle Peninsula.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they sure will.
Okay.
And Northern Mac.
There's one for Northern.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on, application discussion, termination. This will be an action item at the end of the presentation, questions and answers. You may recall that we entertained application from Festival Hall, Aquaculture Innovation Center, and pre-incubator cluster scale-up project down in Northumberland County some time ago. Bruce is back with us again. It was back in October, I think it was, was it October?
It
Was
was
it July?
about a year ago.
Boy, time flies. It was July, and the application was well received, but there were some structural problems with the proposed facility that are being corrected, but it's worthy of us to hear the application and the improvements that have been made to it based upon our comments again, so that we can move this on if possible. So Bruce, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much. Bruce Samuelson, I am retired most of the day. I am a board member at the Greater Reedville Association. It's a nonprofit based in Northumberland County, runs the Reedville Fishermen's Museum, and we have a few other properties, one of which is what we call Festival Hall. It's a 110-year-old community center type building. It's had a number of lives, including the school building for the district. We received the building as a donation some time ago, used it as a community center. It can hold just under 300 people. That's a very conscious number based on firefighting and sprinkling. But because of the way the building was built, the floor is held up by old growth timbers. And those timbers in a wet environment, known as the coastal region, have not survived very well. So we decided to shut it down. It's not a condemned building. We decided to stop using it until we could renovate it. Our application last year has evolved slightly. You're now going to hear us use the words incubator, where the kitchen is a part of this Waterman Aquaculture Incubator Program. It's a key resource that we see a pretty significant demand function for, and I think the 24 letters of support that we have in our packet outline that. We probably could have stuffed more letters in there, but we thought it was overkill, so we sampled across the spectrum of storefronts, what I call upscale watermen, entry-level watermen, Watermen's Association, so forth and so on. The intent of the incubator is, I call it a wedding cake approach. This is how I've done it in the past. You move in with the framework, you build out for some near-term success. Our near-term success points are the incubator for the kitchen itself, and then 4 classes that will run what I call during the off season, and I'll show you a calendar of what we do it. And those classes really focus on targeting smaller startup waterman aquaculture companies who might not have all the skills or enough of the skills to survive an HR environment. How do you talk to an employee? How do you hire your first W-2? Accounting, what I call accounting finance 101. How do you set up your cash basis book so that it's actually a survivable worksheet or balance sheet? And I'll touch on those in a minute. One of the reasons for putting slides together was to prove we've milestoned last year's problem, which was we hadn't started the work. We've started the work. We went under contract last month with a local contractor to peel up the subflooring, remove the rotted wood. We have a big stack of timber in the backyard that's going to replace a lot of the subflooring. You can't really see it in here, but underneath the bottom halves of a lot of these boards are just wet rotted, dry rotted. So they're all coming out. New structure will go in, a new subfloor will go on. At that point, we'll do other interior work. I mean, the building's in good shape. You can see from the quality of the ceiling that it's a nice building. We're going to move some walls around. That's when we'll frame out the new perimeter of the commercial kitchen, and ideally move the kit into that kitchen and set it up. And then we'll put a luxury vinyl tile floor down, commercial grade, so that it lasts for 20 or so years. How we got here was we've raised about $240,000 to date. If you recall last year's application, we had a matching grant from Omega Protein, which is a local commercial fishing firm. Their owners gave us a $250,000 match. We pulled 100 of that through. We have 150,000 left. Some of that is dedicated to this application as part of our cash match. Other grant efforts, that continue is we have multiple grants in through AARP and you name it for interior improvements, ADA improvements, some exterior design work. But the key that was holding us up from last year's application was that flooring. It's a 90-day schedule. We've begun. We should be done, even with Northern Neck Time introduced. We should be done by the middle of summer. The other thing that we outlined in our application, which is no longer discussed in it, but is really important to the association's master planning, is we had a vision for what we call the Waterman's Park. It was a 2.5 acre piece of land adjacent to Festival Hall. It has since been gifted to us. We received it August, September of last year. We have parked the park from a planning perspective. We only have so much volunteer capacity. But that park is adjacent to this site, and we will develop that into a greenfield environment that will include, our intent is to include a farmer/waterman's market, so that there's another outlet for people to sell their goods. So our incubator itself, the way we've discussed it internally was we've shifted our initial application focus away from the phrase kitchen to this pilot incubator. A number of programs or elements to that incubator will include, resources, knowledge work, or classes, if you want to call those, mentoring environments, facilitating access to loans, microloans, all those other grant type programs that exist out there that people don't really know about. Our initial work is going to be within the middle of this wedding cake. The pilot is the kitchen. It's a resource that everybody wants. We frankly could probably sell out all the slots on the schedule if we would open the schedule up today, which is much more oversold than what we put into the ROI model. And we assumed that we'd be half full through year one. The educational programs will target for the winter timeframe, human resources, marketing and branding. We have the firm out of Gloucester. You see the letter in our packet that will teach kind of a social media focused marketing and branding effort, which will be critical to getting the word out for these businesses. And then the other one is food safety. Depending on which product you're touching, you have various certifications you have to go through, because the businesses will be renting our kitchen. The association has some obligation to certify the kitchen. The business, the user of the kitchen, has an obligation to have the cert so that they're shucking their oysters or canning their oysters properly. We've rigged the kitchen so that it's got all the equipment they should need. The key piece is really centered around vacuum sealing and blast chilling. So if you're in it for 4 hours, you want to be able to seal your package quickly and then blast chill it down. We also have a walk-in freezer, which there's always a debate because it's a really big piece of real estate and it's going to stick on the side of the building and we don't necessarily want it there. But from a Waterman aquaculture industry cluster perspective, it's a resource they don't have. The question always is, what do we do with our product? I get it off the water, I get it off the bottom, I get it in my boat. Now I've sealed it and blast chilled it, but I can't ship it until tomorrow. So having a place for them to grab a shelf and store their product is now a cornerstone of our solution set. The last milestone is we've asked for cost contribution for what we call a program coordinator or a project manager. I call them the program coordinator. That is, an overt recognition that our 2-person paid staff in the association can't take on this increased burden. The board of the association has committed to helping pay for that role long term, so that after the grant concludes, by then the hall will be up and running, generating its own revenue stream through weekend rentals, and that will pay for the ongoing activities of the incubator and the coordinator. We've already had a conversation with Mary Wash and Susan Ball. They're more than committed to coming down and bringing all their resources to help with the winter education. One of our board members is a trained facilitator in human resource education and coaching. She'll lead the human resources work. Marketing branding comes out of our firm in Gloucester. Finance and accounting will lean on Mary Wash. And in food safety, we have a combination of a local cook who is a Safe Serve certified instructor and certifier. That's a mouthful. But we'll also reach back out to, and I always goof the acronym up, but it's the organization that manages Safe Serve, runs instructors. And so we would process those through. And that kind of gets you Safety 101. And then from there, we'll work with the Virginia Department of Health out of Kilmarnock to get the specific certs. So if it's oyster related versus shellfish versus commercial fish, it's different certs. Lots of buttons. All right, I'll let you drive. I think just two. Yeah, any one of those is good. So our typical year, and this really looks much like the first year as well, we'll set up, we've already started setting up what we call an advisory board. That's how I'm getting my local match through in-kind labor. We almost run out of people in the county administration offices to volunteer for it. And one of your board members has kindly agreed to be on our board. Thanks, John. We'll stand that board up concurrent with the award. We're assuming a mid-August award, and we'll go straight to ordering the equipment so we can get it into the kitchen through the fall. We'll set up cohort 1 early August, September, so that we're up and running. Probably when you really think about, the impact of Thanksgiving, we'll start the cohorts in December through March. And I probably should have timed this calendar a little differently, but the way the season works, red is Maryland, blue is Virginia. You're done with crabbing between November and December, depending on what part of the water you're on. And you can't start again until just before taxes are due. Oysters work a little different in Maryland and Virginia. Technically, it's open all the time, but nobody does it in the winter. So the bottom line is there's about a 3.5, 4 month off-season time frame. That's when the cohort would run its educational work. We would help the businesses do their next thing. That's also when these watermen tend to buy new motors to repower their boats, put a second boat into introduction, refit all of their crab pots, build their new soft shell tanks, so on and so forth. So I would see some work in here with the grant process, kind of consistent with the beginning of the Virginia fiscal year to help get microloans, loans, and grants in place. That pattern would be managed by the program coordinator overseen by the advisory board, trying to put the board together so that it's got economic development out of the Northern Neck and Middle Peninsulas, as well as pretty significant waterman presence. I've got 2 watermen who say they want to help. One of them's actually a local government supervisor, so he punches a couple tickets for me. I haven't gotten their forms back yet because it's a chicken or egg problem. They don't want to commit based on their already very busy schedules, and I'll go back tonight and talk to them again. So, I mean, that in a nutshell is our program. It's the outside of our building. Happy to answer any questions.
We have all the documentation that Sarah and I had a discussion on Friday. We have all the forms and all the documentation required for the application.
So we are still missing some of the match forms. We have letters from one, but not the form. This is something that we have issues with every application, is getting these match forms in. And typically in the past, they've come in before the grant is due to DHCD. So we have about a 2-week period here before I actually have to submit the grant to DHCD. Billy has said that if the council approves the project contingent that all of the match forms are in by April 30th for us to get it to DHCD, then they will accept it at that point. The other option that we have is that there is the, you can waive the local match or fill out a form to ask the state board to waive the 20% local match requirement. If we did that, we would basically say we have some local match. The project team demonstrated to us that they tried their hardest to get the full 20% and were unable to do so. This is the waiver. And so none of our localities meet the fiscal stress index. So we would have to go with this, that they attempted to solicit local contribution and they were unable to provide it. I will say the project team they have demonstrated, at least to me, that they have been out there hitting the ground to get the local match. The two counties that are localities that are meaningfully involved in the project are Northumberland County, which they have cash match from, which I can't tell you how many projects we've even had in this PD 16 that we've been able to get cash match directly from a locality. So that's not easy. So I do want to give them kudos for that. And then they have in kind from both Northumberland and Lancaster counties. So I think if they get the forms, and one of the forms just need to be corrected.
Yeah, we're literally, I mean, so our match is $28,080. We have a $5,000 cash match from Northumberland. I've got 3 forms. We estimated the advisory group effort was about 6 hours a month across 2 years at $35 an hour average volunteer rate. Each of those is just over $5,000. One form was self-edited to a number that's below minimum wage. We're going back to work that. The other form, pretty clearly the office shared notes and said all 3 of us are participating on this board. One of them opted out, so I had to go to a fallback. And that individual hasn't submitted yet. They're committed, they haven't submitted. So we're, of the $28,000, I've got about 20,000 matched, and I need the last date.
In the scenario, we would be waiving the last bit that's not matched, not all of it.
Correct. So how it works is for implementation projects, 20% of their total match, so their match is a 2 to 1. So they're asking for $280,800. And I can go back up to the budget. And so their match is half of that. 20% of that has to be local match. They have more than enough match overall. It's just that local piece that we're missing, that last 8,000 from a locality, that they can make it up with other match that they have that actually moved to leverage. So it would just be asking the state board to weigh that based off of where the localities are. There's not a lot of cash to give there, so.
And quite honestly, the county offices are so small that we're starting to hit like 10% density. So it's become interesting. But it's been this evolution was a lot of work on our part, but was also very interesting to do. It is to the core of the association's mission is the Waterman heritage of way of life. And to be able to carry that going forward, frankly, it aligned very well with some of the work we're doing with our strategic vision. And we were able to sync the 2 up like that.
Bruce, you mentioned the Middle Peninsula. This facility will be available to Middle Peninsula Watermen if they choose to contact you.
Yes, sir. Yeah. It's really a radius driving issue more so than it is a geography issue. And to come up even from Gloucester, which depending on, you're doing it by boat or by water, it's almost equal time. If we went west, to the Westmoreland border, I don't think we would find as many interested users.
Okay.
Bruce, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to point out the RCC does teach Serve Safe at our campuses.
Yes, we know. And we've talked to them, and we've talked to Northumberland High School, who teach food services in general, and both of them are capped out. So what we're trying to do with this class, if there's a waterman or a business that wants to be part of the cohort but doesn't have that cert, we want to eliminate that barrier for them using it. And either get them the cert or have them work through, to some of y'all's earlier language, work through a proxy. Somebody else does the work on their behalf, and that's the cert.
Any board members have any additional questions?
Just mentioned how I was checking on these to review this initially. Part of for you to do it is the vision is at the initial cohort is there's some water of them will graduate out.
Correct.
Bring more in. So there's like a in perpetuity type vision to where this is going. This is just to get it out of the box.
Correct, yeah, we anticipate, and we would encourage those watermen, to graduate out. When we discussed this last year, we were really targeting that entry-level business. Somebody with his boat and his buddy going out and crabbing. And what we've seen with the letters of support and the interest is really more of a value-added goods environment, where it's a more established business who now want to figure out how to do the example that we always use is, how do I pre-cook oysters Rockefeller, package it and sell it? That's the one he wants to try and do, which is an environment where they'll experiment in our kitchen, and after a few years, we would graduate them out, which opens up a rental slot, to use that kind of metaphor, when we bring the next business.
You can, that is the pathway that you will actually have potentially more jobs created because they do expand their business. And for marketing, you're gonna have to hire people to market your business. So there's the potential that more than the jobs that are in here could
Correct.
create.
Yeah, and I'm an engineer by training, and I design ships, so I'm about as conservative as I can get typically. So the ROI numbers that are in here are based on a 50% retained earnings model from the revenues gained by packaging soft shells or shuck and canned oysters, period. So any other value-added good, any other grant or loan or other revenue stream investment that could create more income, that's all upside to the ROI.
Additional questions? When the board entertained this application in July of 2024, it was very favorably received, with the exception of the floor condition, which is being remedied. And the foundation is committed to replacing, as you can see. They've had extensive discussions through Sarah and through Ian, with Go Virginia DHCD folks. So this application, if you think it's ready to go, I think it's ready to go. We should endorse it. So we have a motion to endorse the application with the exception of, well, not with the exception, but recognizing that we need to receive the local funding endorsements, match endorsements, or we need to send in the form which waives the local match, depending upon what the timing is for the receipt of those endorsements. Okay, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. If everybody understood that. Okay,
I did one tiny bit, is it waive the local match or waive a portion of the local match?
Waive the 20% requirement,
The
waive a
20%
portion, what they've already said,
Yes.
what they already have.
I knew that, was just gonna get clarified, yeah, okay.
additional questions about the motion? May we call for vote?
We'll do a roll call.
Roll call?
All right, John Anzavino,
Yes.
Tara Bryce Rowland,
Yes.
yeah. Which you should have, yeah, I believe you have to abstain.
And John Baden has voted.
Oh, fair enough. Yep. Makes sense.
Renee Daniel,
Yes.
Jackie Davis. Jan Urquhart,
Yes.
Vernon Green Jr.,
Yes.
Dr. Janet Gullickson,
Yes.
Pete Hume,
Yes.
Dr. Shannon Kennedy.
Yes.
Jenny Matern,
Yes.
Joseph Persky,
Yes.
and Dr. Kimberly Young.
Yes.
That is unanimous with one abstention.
Bruce, thank you for sticking with this and finishing up, as you said you would. I mean, this is a big deal for the Northern Neck.
It's a fun project. Projects like this are interesting to watch because they draw the energy to them, and you see that happening. And so we'll get to that last match now. I just want to give a shout out to Sarah and her team. I mean, they've been instrumental in putting this together. I mean, the portal shows the results of our application. All the typos are mine, apologies. It is a great portal. It's way easier to use than the old stuff. But there's a lot of energy that goes into it. And then thanks to the initial peer review boards, both of them, that feedback is the first case we get of what I would call a sanity check. And it's really, really important to us. So thank you all.
And
Thank you.
If I may, part of this came back as it did because a waterman, an oyster company, Steamboat Wharf Oysters, accosted Billy at the Virginia Sea Grant legislative session on fair. We came to you and were like, this is coming from the industry, I think, is what that I'm saying, is that they're like, we need this in the area. And so I think that's part of the reason why it's kept up. We didn't just defer it and it went away. The industry's really big.
So good to see the watermen getting excited about it because they don't get excited about a whole lot.
Right. Thank you all.
Okay. All right, moving on the agenda, information items. First one up is update from the Growth and Opportunities Virginia State Board of Regional Council Committee, which Jackie Davis is so graciously agreed to serve on.
It was a really good meeting, very informative. Their agenda is organized in a manner that it's around 4 different areas: connection, collaboration, connectivity, and productivity. And they also gave a General Assembly update. They had a lot of things that they were watching on the General Assembly. This was the first year, this is one of the years that the General Assembly did not take away money from Go Virginia. There was the delegate class that added a bill to add support services, such as childcare, to be allowable to Go Virginia activities. If the region incorporates it into their growth and diversification plan, it did pass.
It did, and it was vetoed.
It was vetoed, okay, it was a full to the governor was the last. Also Delegate Phillips extended the sunset provisions of previous Go Virginia statute that the tobacco commission money that could be used for match. They extended that. UVA got a $7.5 million Go Virginia money for lab and life science space under Go Virginia. The MOU with DEP. There was a $2 million that was through DOL. So we don't have job initiatives. That will come through those. And their next meeting is going to be May 29th in person. Some of the meetings are virtual, some are in person. Sarah and Melody was there. That was a lot of the meetings.
Yeah, you hit it on the head, add a little flavor on the $7 million to UVA last space. So that's in conjunction. You guys may remember, last June, the board approved 3 projects in 3 different regions. They were called Vital, and they're around life science to grow that cluster. And so that's gonna provide lab space in partnership with UVA to really kind of accelerate that cluster scale up effort in the Charlottesville area, but very much connected to Blacksburg, very much connected to VCU too.
Any questions for Jackie? Thank you for doing that. It was looking pretty bleak there for a while. Yeah, well, thank you so much. Okay, next items are Sarah, so I'll just let you run through it at your leisure.
We had the March state board meeting. We recall at our last meeting, we had an applicant for Region 4 come for our support for a statewide grant. That was deferred by the state board. Haven't heard any updates from them, but I believe that the state board felt it needed a little bit more work to define the partnerships and how it's going to work in each region. So that was deferred into the next state board meeting. There is an update on match guidelines. I just wanted to flag for y'all that we talked about last week in our support org retreat. So in the past, if an applicant came forward and they had a nonprofit that was doing services as or any contractor, it doesn't have to be a nonprofit, would come in, that non-contractor would receive Go Virginia funds as part of their payment. So the applicant would be asking for a drawdown from Go Virginia to reimburse the contractor for work. And in the past, that contractor was allowed to also provide in-kind match. That's no longer allowed. So if a contractor is getting paid out of the Go Virginia drawdown, they cannot then come in and provide in-kind match. They can review this on a case-by-case basis. I think the example that we gave at the state board was say, example, CompTIA came in and said, all right, as we're going to discount our fee for a CompTIA license, that discount counts as in-kind match. That could still be used, something along those lines. But I think what the staff at DHCD is trying to do, which I understand, is prevent these contractors from driving projects as opposed to the applicants, the localities, private industry driving the projects. So Billy's here to have your question.
And I have a question about that.
Going forward on new grant.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing is sometimes the industry partner is more knowledgeable than the organization, and you need that type of push or industry expertise to move the project forward.
Yeah. And I think in those instances, because they said they'll review on a case-by-case basis if they're seen, but I think what's happening is that some contractors are coming in fishing for projects, and that's what they're trying to prevent.
I know exactly what you're talking.
Yeah.
Additional questions?
All right, yeah, moving on. So, as we talked about earlier, the statewide planning grant, which is not the first statewide planning we've had, like, that was a planning grant, but it was a statewide application for 2 and 3.
No, that actually, we still have not had one. So that one was actually co-funded. So
Okay.
50,000 from Region 3, 50,000 from Region 2 as a regular per capita planning grant. No, we still have not received a statewide yet.
Okay, but they submitted an application for the AI assessment landscape in conjunction with the Virginia State Chamber of Commerce. And so Vernon has volunteered to serve as industry representative for Region 6 on that advisory group. And that's part of the Virginia Chamber's blueprint for 2035, and they will be going to each Virginia region, as we talked about earlier. I will send you all the registration link. It's free. It's for the entire Region 6, and that date is June 24th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., and it'll be here at the Jepson Alumni Executive Center. So I will send that out to you after the meeting. Project update in your packet. Every meeting, we give you an update on all the current open projects, just what they're up to, if they're on track. I have no concerns to bring to you about any of our projects. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We are closing out the workforce now, as you heard Carly talk about, and our really large statewide competitive grant with the Virginia Sea Grant is closing out at the end of April. So I'm going to ask them to come in July and present to the council.
Oh,
here.
good.
Yeah.
Good.
Be done. So. That's all I have for you.
Any questions for Sarah? Any additional items to come before the board?
Thanks to Sarah, for holding the ship together.
Yeah, very well.
Yes,
Okay, hopefully you don't have any food delivery problems.
I have micro trauma from issues last year. Thanks to Kate for basically catering breakfast at last year's summit. Used to be Walmart. Yeah.
Well, we hope we'll see all of you at the Economic Development Summit tomorrow. If not, you get a report on how it went at the next board meeting. So if there's no other items coming before the board, meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all for coming today, giving us your time.
Sarah, is the